Hello, and welcome to another episode of Resilience Rocks Sales. Today, I am joined by the amazing Leslie Greenwood. Leslie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to join you across the world.
Yeah, this is one of these things that I absolutely love, even though there's some of the technology challenges can test us. But again, we're talking about resilience today. So one of those things that we have to deal with along the journey, particularly when we are working all over the world. But again, we're going to take the good with the bad. What I'd love to start with, if you could just give us a little bit of the Leslie Greenwood story, and particularly what's brought you to be here today to be talking to us about all things sales, resilience, and leadership.
Awesome. Well, it is a long and winding road, which you do not want to hear all of. But I guess the highlights of my most recent iteration of my career is, I had my own business starting when my oldest daughter was 5 months old, and I would, it was in sales. I was a brokerage. So I'd take purchase order numbers and write them on a diaper with a crayon if that's all I had around. And I did that for 10 years. On my LinkedIn profile, you'll notice it says ex stay-at-home mom, which is my little pokey fun at all the ex Googlers and other impressive company name here. So I put ex stay-at-home mom online. So I was a stay-at-home mom for a couple of years. And then I accidentally got my first role at a startup and didn't know it was a startup, didn't know what SaaS meant. I thought PPC was pay per clip, not pay per click. I didn't know how to make a bookmark on Chrome when I first got my role there. And it was honestly, I was talking to a friend and asking her how after school care was. And I guess I was on speakerphone and the VP of sales walked by and says, "Oh, you have a friend that was looking for a job. Can she come in tomorrow?" And that is what started my startup journey, which I've been on now for goodness, 12, 12 years, I think. And started there as tier one support, answering every phone call, sat outside the president's door. And he came out one day and says, "I think we're underutilizing your skill set. Would you like to come to sales?" And I said, "Oh, does it make more money?" And he said, "Yes." And so I'm like, "Okay, sure." So that was my first, I guess, startup sales role, but I've always done sales. In college, I was a telemarketer selling credit cards over the phone, which is crazy. That really dates me. People would give me their social security number and I'd sign them up for a Chase something or other. I know, right? And then once I got into startups, I just never looked back. I love the gray area. I love building. I love the no rules, Wild West nature of it. And so as I moved into this particular area of my career journey, which I'm calling B17, and I think there'll be a V25 at least. I am the founder of Chief Evangelist Consulting. And so I work with companies, which is how we met, looking to either bring a community-led growth model into their SaaS company or a paid membership community that's looking to either up level, start from scratch, redo what they did in COVID, start new programming, monetization, et cetera. And then I'm also the co-founder of Wednesday Women, which is how we reconnected after our first one, which is our goal is just to uplift and shine the spotlight on executive women all year round, not just during Women's History Month, and show people who they are outside of their title. And so, if you all haven't followed Wednesday Women, you should, and then scroll back if you're a Stacey Copus fan and find her feature and tell us all about her and everything. So it's been really great to kind of follow your story and me be to be your fan.
Aw, hashtag mutual admiration society. And I love it. That's one of the things I love about Wednesday Women. It is definitely a mutual admiration society there. And it's definitely one of my favorite parts of LinkedIn is starting to see these profiles. And I've connected with so many incredible women based off the features that you've been doing. I just think it's such an awesome initiative to elevate women. And I love, as you said, if it's about getting more women on stages and podcasts and doing all those type of things. And again, here we are on a podcast chatting together off the back of those things. And definitely, I'm sure I know some of the women that I've connected with via there are on my list as well. So it's going to be great to be able to put those stages out there. And I just think it's an amazing initiative. So congratulations to you and Melissa on the amazing work on that one. And I did love the April Fool's prank. that was just brilliant. You just, and again, just it looked all so official and profesh. So it was great. And I think you definitely suckered some people in on that one.
Oh, and Melissa went on and got on Midjourney to create that logo. I mean, she's so creative. Like, you could have totally just wrote an MM and been done, but no, 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 no. She goes full out creative and gets an entire like real logo built for this fake company, or yeah, really if this third extra company that we don't need. So yeah, no, it was a pretty good one. And the comments were I was just dying at the comments.
Oh, it was definitely super, super entertaining, and I know that I spent quite a bit of time going through there on it. But it looked legit. And for those that might have missed it, it was the Monday Man. But maybe someone might run with that.
Let them have at it. Go for it.
They can have it. I think it sounds like from everything you've shared, you've got enough balls in the air as it is. And yeah, and I also love that you touched on though back in college with telemarketing, because it's something that people get advised. It's like, if you want to get over your fear of picking up the phone or get over your fear of sales, then take a telemarketing job. So what was that like as a college person, probably fairly green and that sort of stuff, to actually take that on? And also, what was the motivation behind taking that on?
Yeah. I think it was a random college job is why I took it on. Maybe I knew someone that worked there. I'm not exactly sure, but there's context around that. So I grew up in the Midwest. I went to school in Illinois. My school is literally surrounded by cornfields. So not only did we do, chase credit cards, but we also did New York Tel. So this is before call waiting, call forwarding, like the things that don't even exist anymore because we don't need them. So I'm calling New Yorkers from the middle of a cornfield to try to sell them phone features that at that point were, like call waiting. I mean, it's just busy signal, right? And all this stuff. The amount of like times that I was cussed out or, hung up on because it's just they're two different cultures. So you have a Midwestern farm girl calling New Yorkers trying to sell them stuff over the phone. So it was definitely a trial by fire. But you know what it was? It was like it was a graduated pay scale. The more you sold, it's just like what is that called now? Like I forget what kind of commission it is, but it's like the more you sold, the more you got paid per hour. So like I could make back in that day $15 an hour. This is in the 90s,
That was
so
a
you know what I
lot
mean.
of money.
No, I think the minimum wage was $4 or $3 and something, and so that was my motivation. Yeah, I wanted to go kick butt and sell a whole bunch of call waiting so I could make $15 an hour. Definitely got my all of my jitters out about all of that, and actually found that speaking to people on the phone now turned into speaking to people virtually and creating connections with them is actually one of my skill sets. Like being able to quickly create rapport with people virtually is what I would call one of my superpowers. And I started doing that, at the age of 20, calling New Yorkers from my cornfield.
Wow, that's awesome. And I guess, and still, there's still telemarketing jobs. They're probably a little bit harder these days because of caller ID and all of those type of things as well. But it's still an opportunity, isn't it, for people to get thrown in the deep end? And but yeah, I can imagine, like, it's especially the first few days must have been daunting.
100%. But think of it, I think it's like the modern BDR or the old day BDR. It's the same thing. Instead of selling telephone services, I'm selling, XYZ.AI's SaaS product, and I'm doing the same thing.
And what have you found, like, particularly you said that I guess, accidentally fell into startup and now that's where you live and love. And what have you found have been, I guess, the big differences? You've mentioned obviously no rules is a big one. But what have you found would be the biggest difference for, say, somebody that was in a sales role, or maybe, looking at a sales role in a startup as compared to a larger company? What would you sort of advise somebody would be the biggest things to look out for? And I guess what the biggest opportunities are too?
I can only speak from my experience. And, obviously there's a whole different level of startups out there, but I will say, even after being in startups for 8 years, I didn't know that enablement was a thing. No one had ever taught me anything. No one taught me even a script or a sales methodology. I didn't know about Medic. I didn't know about Bant. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but I had nothing. No one walked me through a demo. I watched the demo myself and I started calling people. I mean, so like there's at that stage, and I think there's still many companies like that, that you're onboarding as a member of a startup is, hi, welcome, listen to Susie, get on the phone when you're ready. And I actually trained people when I was tier one support and answering all the phones. As we hired more people, I put them on the phones the second day. I mean, I really did do the same thing to them that, was done to me. It's like, hey, guess how you're going to learn best? You are just going to start answering those phone calls. So lack of enablement, number one. Now, granted, I'm not going to say no rules. There are always rules. I'm just not a fan of them. That's just not my personality. So I'm likely to press the boundaries of rules, but I do like the gray. I like the idea of building things. And I think, as you progress in company maturity, there are more boxes that you need to fit into, more, I guess, rules, more methodologies, more the way you keep your notes, the way you document the CRM. It's just much tighter. And your latitude to make decisions autonomously is also maybe tighter. And honestly, I just like to my own decisions, and probably why I've decided I'm maybe perpetually unemployable by others at this point in my life is, so yeah, so I'd definitely say the lack of enablement, lack of training is one of the biggest things. I still can't quite wrap my head around enablement. I'm like, it's your whole job just to teach me not only the product, but sales methodology and all this stuff. I'm like, still mind blown.
And I know that we've got quite a few people that have come across to the podcast that actually have no exposure to sales at all, which has been super cool. Um, so for somebody that knows nothing about sales, like how would you explain enablement to them?
Um, you know what? I'll tell you how I explain it, but it's probably not right. It's super oversimplified. Is just they literally teach you what the product is, what it does, why someone would want to buy it, how to handle objections. I mean, I guess everything I probably wanted to know, but just had to figure out on my own. So you're probably asking the really wrong person. I'm so sorry, enablement folks. I just butchered your job and made it sound way simpler than it is.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So anyone listening's got any more questions about enablement, make sure you send them over. And yeah, we can dig deeper into that in a future episode as well, because it's not something we've talked about so far on the podcast. As far into it as we are, it's not something that's come up much. So it's super cool because, and I guess, and you mentioned Medic and BANT and all these acronyms and all that sort of stuff. And there's probably people that have got no idea what language we're speaking there either, as you said, for people that are just getting into the deep end, and it's like sales, here you go. As you said, watch the demo, off you go. I'm sure there's lots of people that crash and burned through that. And there would be a lot of people that were like, okay, this is just not for me. But clearly you found your way. And so now, having come through all of that and then working in different places, I think I love that you shared about juggling the staying at home mum and doing all that sort of stuff. Like there are so many lessons of resilience through this. So overall, with what you've seen and the people that you've worked with that have been successful in sales, like what role do you feel that resilience has played in their success?
Oh, 100%. I mean, you get knocked down, you know, every day, multiple times a day. Um, just a side story, my son he's now in college and he does not compete anymore, but he was a gymnast. So, went up to level 10 in the United States, the highest level before you get to college and the Olympics. He went to nationals, and those boys they're so resilient. Every day they spend more time on the ground than they spend doing a skill. Every day they get knocked down. Every day they get back up multiple times. And I remember an Olympian came to talk to them and told them, like, does anybody ever bully you for being, a gymnast and a boy or whatever? And, a lot of kids raise their hands like, but you know what? No one does what you do. No one gets knocked down that many times and gets back up. Think of the skills that's going to give you for life. And I think that's 100% for sales. You're going to get more no's than you get yeses. Um, and, just toughens your skin and you get better. Also kind of goes into scrappiness. So like what you said, like, how does that fall into there? Like how did not everybody crash and burn in the experience that I was in, where you're just said, here, watch a demo? Because they were scrappy. I mean, they figured out how to do that. They decided to go sit with customer success for a day and just listen to the conversations they had. They decided to go over to marketing and talk to them. Like, they used their own intuition and gut to go teach themselves, basically. And honestly, that group of folks, like, they totally had it. I mean, that was a great team, and everybody was like, they felt like an owner, and they were very scrappy and just did whatever it took.
That's awesome. And I love that you mentioned there about, gymnastics and sport, because sports obviously is somewhere where we can learn a lot of resilience. And also there's just so many, I guess, metaphors and things like that from sports that we can do with that. And I love that you mentioned there about, again, this being having to be a little bit scrappy at times just to sort of find your way. And I guess that with that, to me, that sort of shows, again, if you've got that level of, I guess, persistence and resilience, but also that resourcefulness as well to go, all right, I'm going to find a way. That's been super just to sort of hear those experiences along the way. And I'd love to dig into now with what you're doing around evangelists. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about, okay, what is an evangelist? And also what role do they play in the sales process for an organization?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I love this topic. I'm very passionate about it. So if I go on too long, please just, like, Leslie, stop talking. You talked enough. But what I saw and what I'm seeing now, so there's a great way to, like, kind of tie this to Wednesday Women as well. So my main role, chief evangelist consulting around community building, et cetera. But that's just one way to gather people and create an experience, or you've created a product or a service that goes beyond expectation, where people, are surprised and delighted, where they go out and talk about you without you being asked. When I worked at Pavilion, which is a community for go-to-market professionals, we went from 2,000 to 10,000 members in 2 years. Talk about building the plane as you fly it. And it was mostly through word of mouth marketing. Someone would post on LinkedIn, I'm a member of Pavilion. My team, we had like a gifting budget. And we just see somewhere in Slack or on LinkedIn that so and so had a baby, and we'd go send them the Pavilion onesie that no doubt always ended up on LinkedIn, or a bottle of champagne because they got a new job. So it's like those little things that people don't expect. Same thing with, like, we called every new member within 4 business hours of joining, 4 of our business hours of joining. You're not
Wow.
expecting that. That's an enterprise level experience at, even at that point, $2,000 a year. You're not expecting that. And so those moments that exceeded expectations is what kind of fed the evangelism, which is, to go by my definition, someone who you've not asked to go out and spread the good word about you, talk about their experience. And I mean, you've seen it because you're following Wednesday Women. I mean, we've gone from 0 to 4,500 followers in less than a year. We've been in business for 6 months. And it is truly because of the fact that the women and the people, it's all people that follow us, will go tag us in posts. We'll just write a post about us. We'll just do all these things that we've never asked them to do, but they somehow were providing an experience beyond expectation, or filling really a need that's been out there that people just talk about us. And that's the same thing that can happen, I mean, with any product. I don't know if most of your, listeners are in SaaS or selling technology or selling widgets, but it's not the widget itself that's going to go out and tell your friend. It's something about the sales experience. It's something about the buying experience. It's about the product goes beyond expectation, et cetera. Because no bad product, no amount of evangelism will ever work if your product is bad. But, if you have a good product and you've delivered that extra, like, your sales are so much easier. People walk a deal in the door to you. And there are different levels of evangelists. So, like many companies, I'm actually in a group for people whose titles are evangelists. So they might be the evangelist, like Ethan Butte. He was, and now is, he was the evangelist for Bomb. He's now the evangelist for a real estate CRM. And his job is to go out and speak and educate and teach about that. So you can have the company evangelist. You should have the founder evangelist, because your founder should be the most passionate person about your product. Um, you'll see people talking about, like, your employees should be evangelists. They should love the product. They should love working with you to where they might want to talk about it. And I'm not talking about you give them a script and they go out and put it on LinkedIn because we could all see through that. And then like the holy grail is your customers that just love you and will tell somebody else about it. Just kind of passionate about that.
Oh, I love it, and I love it. I'm happy for you to talk for days on this because, again, it's an element of sales that I think is probably not even thought of, or some people might not have even heard of the word evangelist. I guess people might have heard a word about advocates and stuff like that, but I think to me, evangelist just takes it to a whole another level than an advocate.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, because there's ambassadors, oftentimes ambassadors might be paid in some way or they're compensated in some kind of way. Advisors might be compensated in stock or payment, et cetera. But this is truly, a no payment and no ever expectation of payment kind of process. But you really have to earn it. But once you've earned it, it's amazing. And, people will say, well, Leslie, that's not scalable. You can't send onesies to all of your customers that have babies. I'm like, well, yeah, maybe, but scalable just means I have a documented process. And if that one person posts, then 100 people see it or 1,000. And that maybe gets me one or two more sales where I have the ability to create evangelists out of them. And then it's just like this pyramid of all the things. And, I've seen it happen. So I'm gonna stay on the it's totally scalable train.
I think so too, because especially if the numbers are there, if the ROI is there, then why not just do more of it?
Plus $0 to actually over deliver on service to your customers.
Yeah. And
Blows my mind.
it's crazy, isn't it? A company has that, I guess, intention or that they want to do that, then obviously their recruitment process is going to have to be very specific to that, isn't it? So, what sort of advice do you have for somebody that is going, okay, look, this is something that we really want to happen in our organization? What kind of things would you advise them then to look at when they're recruiting for people into their company?
Say even before that, it's like when you said we want this to happen in our company, it's like you can't just want it to happen. Like you have to, it's a strategy. It is a mindset. It is part of your core culture. It sits in your core values, on the virtual wall now that this is what you do and how you do it. I mean, it depends on which role you're, going after, but you really are looking for someone who's going to go above and beyond. I'm not just the seller who's going to take the order and throw it over the wall to customer success. I'm invested in my customer success, and I may check in with them because guess what? I know that's where my referrals come from. But you have to have that mindset and it can't be as transactional. Like I'm not just saying I'm going to check in with my customer because I know that will give me a referral. So, hi customer, how are you? Da 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 da. Great, sounds good. And then next one, hi, and do you have any referrals for me? Like that doesn't work. So you really have to find those people that have that kind of like above and beyond, that resilient mindset, that scrappy mindset, because they know that that's what's going to feed their pipeline outside of inbound leads, outside of cold prospecting, outside of whatever their SDR feeds them.
And it sounds just like a much more enjoyable way to do business anyway, is to actually genuinely care about the people that you're engaging with. And it sort of ties in really well to it was in episode 16, we spoke to Bob Berg. So obviously from the Go Giver philosophy around always looking about how you provide value first and foremost without any expectation of anything in return. So I think that listening to these two episodes together could be really helpful as far as people that are looking to intentionally put that strategy into their business. But also just in everything you do, isn't it? It's just every interaction you have with a person is how can you actually have them have that experience be something that they walk away from feeling valued, appreciated, seen, those type of things in everything you do. And that can just be even in the tiniest little interaction, couldn't it?
Oh, yeah. And it impacts you in so many different ways, like in stepping outside of sales. Or, I mean, some of my best friends now are people I've met through community that we've just started talking. Maybe I helped them with a problem. Maybe they helped me with a problem that created a bond. And now it's like we've gone on vacation together. Or, all of my business comes from community or LinkedIn. So it's all networking. It's almost all referral. based, because people just tag me in things like, oh, you should talk to Leslie. Oh, you should talk to Leslie, things like that. And now, granted, I know that I will have to thank you, all of the salespeople listening. I will have to business develop. I do work on that, not as much as I should, because I know my referrals will eventually run out. But you know what? In my mind, I don't think they will, because I will continue to give value to people to where that they will continue to want to use. And this is my post today: is they will want to use their social capital to expend a little bit on me to feel confident to refer me to somebody that could use my services, because in the end, I'll make them look good by making that, doing business with that person.
Yeah, I just read that post before we got on here. I thought it was excellent. And I guess for someone that's like social capital, what is that? Like, how would you explain what social capital is?
I mean, I feel like we all have a bank of it. And so social, I should go back and look at it, what it is, but it's like, it's how you curry favors, I guess, is a really kind of like transactional way about it. But like, I can ask somebody, I could ask Samantha McKenna, who's very LinkedIn famous, for a favor, because we've spoken numerous times. We've traded interactions, we've created value for each other, etc. I can't go do that with someone I don't know, and that I haven't earned some kind of like deposit. Like, you and I, we've discussed, we've done some, conversating back and forth. And if I had something like, Stacey, do you know XYZ? I would love an introduction. I would feel very comfortable asking you that, because I know I would not be overdrafting my bank. And hopefully you would be like, oh, I would love to do that, if you knew that person, of course. So it's really kind of like a currency of how, you could get introductions. Or when there's people that I really like and I see a job opening and I'm like, hey, this job might be great for you. I know the founder. Would you want an introduction? I'm not going to offer that to someone I don't know. And as you know, probably as well, in your DMs, you get, hey, do you know X? Can you introduce me? I'm like, I don't know who you are. You could be the worst salesperson or serial killer, and I am not going to at all use my social capital to go pull in a favor to X CEO to make that intro. Whereas if I know, like, and trust you, I will 100% go put my neck out, because I know that you're going to represent me well. Like, let's say show the meeting. Now I look bad. I've lost social capital because of that. So I hope that kind of explains. It's a little bit different, and it's actually in a real, like, you Google it, it's a theory. There are papers on it. There's all kinds of stuff, but that's my interpretation.
Yeah, I really like your interpretation of it as well. And as you said just there at the end, you are essentially putting your neck out and you are putting your reputation on the line in these things. And I've had heaps of times too over the years where people are like, "Oh, could you again introduce me to this person, or would you write me a reference, or would you do all these type of things?" And it's like, I actually don't really know you that well. And I've had instances. I think we've all had an experience at some point during our careers where we may have put forward somebody that was, perhaps a friend, but maybe someone we haven't worked with before for a role or something like that, and it hasn't gone well. And then, like, I know in those situations, I felt absolutely terrible, because I sort of feel that, first of all, the person that I've introduced them to has had a not great experience there. But then I sort of feel like I've let them down, and sometimes let both the people down as well. So I really like that you explained it the way you did. And again, I guess it's interesting, isn't it? Because you don't want to be sort of doing it with an intention to get or to gain. It's just, as you said, just going out there again, coming back to some of the go giver stuff as well, is just going out there with the intention of adding value and seeing how you can be helpful. And as you said, sometimes it can just be a simple tag on LinkedIn, isn't it? And this is like, LinkedIn's beautiful for this, isn't it? Is where you see an opportunity and you just tag someone in the comments, or I know often I'll just flick someone a link and go, "I just saw this and I thought of you."
100%. And I think the thing to keep in mind is that this is built over years, but it can be destroyed very quickly. And so, like, it's like your reputation. It's not something you go like, okay, I'm going to go build my social capital bank and I'm going to withdraw. It's like, no, it doesn't work like that. And for, the sellers or the sales folks that are out there, like, this is how you've built capital with your clients or your customers. That's what allows you to ask for the referral. like, who else do you know? If you haven't built that trust or they don't feel a certain way about their experience with you, they're not going to take the extra time, even give you a name, let alone make a warm introduction for you. So, I mean, I think that's important to note for people out there actually doing sales and how they could use it in their day-to-day life.
I like too that you were mentioning, like, obviously the word community has come up a lot during our conversation, particularly around with what you're doing with evangelists and then with Wednesday women, all that sort of stuff. And I know it's been something that I've been writing on my intentions list over the course of the last year, as well as around that intention of creating connected communities, because I really feel that, particularly over the last few years, that connection has been something that's been lost. Have you found that over, I guess, particularly over the last few years, have you found that then that people are being more drawn to community because of that connection?
I think they are. I think they are. The challenge is so many communities were built during COVID when we just like, it didn't matter. You could have had the worst experience, the worst everything, and everybody was clamoring for it so bad that it seemed good at the time. I think people are just being more selective about where they spend their time. And that's, from following Wednesday Women is that we are not a community. We are creating community around our mission uh, because we don't feel that executive women need to spend 15 more minutes somewhere else getting value. So our job is just to deliver value. And so it's very interesting to come at it from a community builder to say, oh, you can build community without building a community. And that's been a really interesting thing. And honestly, I've been really surprised because a year ago I would have said that's an audience, that's not a community. I would have put it for sure. But I think once people start identifying as members of their community, they say, join Wednesday Women. And once they start doing that, it's like, okay, it's a community. And like, I mean, you're saying you've connected with multiple women. You're going to ask them for podcasts. Like there is still there's some like connective tissue there, even though you've never met. We're not an official community. We all believe in something together. And so maybe that's what it is. And by the way, when we're done, I will give you the name of an enablement person that you should interview on here to actually talk about what enablement is, since I failed so miserably. And she's amazing. And she wore her Wednesday Women shirt. I think it was like "Pay Me Like a Man" or something like that the other day, and posted on LinkedIn. So I'm just like, okay, you need to talk to Fiona. That she should be your enablement. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be awesome. And I love, again, as you said, in the beginning, it was like, it was an audience, but organically it's just turned into a community. And as you go, you got people, you got merch now. You got
We have
merch, you got events, you got all these things that are happening.
so funny. Someone said at our first event, you'll find this money. They're like, yeah, we're going to, what did they say? Oh, someone said they were going to be the chapter head of the San Francisco chapter. I'm like, people, we don't even have a newsletter yet. There's nothing to be proud of. It was just crazy. So yes, and we have a newsletter. So, I mean, we have merch and a newsletter. We're so much closer to being a community now.
Yeah, but it's grown again organically, hasn't it? It's been that the people who were, I guess it's even just that difference in even the languaging between following Wednesday Women rather than joining Wednesday Women, isn't it? Those like little subtle differences that now again has then morphed into, as you said, a newsletter, the merch, the events, chapter heads for chapters that don't even exist. Like it's so cool. It's almost like it's become a sentient being now on its own, hasn't it?
Or we don't say join Wednesday Women, we say follow. Follow Wednesday Women, but it's the people that are following Wednesday Women that say join Wednesday Women. I was at a conference in Phoenix, and there was a side event at Sendoso, and one of the women that couldn't come to the event was there. And so I brought her a scarf because that was like the signature gift everybody got. And I know you saw on all the posts that they posted, like almost everybody included the scarf. Like, this is, no one's 90. So I'm not sure if anybody's going to really like this scarf, but we think they're pretty. And Melissa designed them. So we're going to go with it. And there was another woman that we had featured there. And she's like, hey, I saw Kate with a scarf. How did she get that scarf? How do I get a scarf? She was like, this is like your flag. And I'm like, who knew? We didn't even think people would like them because no one's 80. So yeah, no, it's just really interesting. I could talk about that all day too. But that, I mean, it really goes back to evangelism. It's Melissa and I. She has a younger family than I do. I have a family. We both have other full-time jobs. We are very not picky, but we really weigh what we spend time on,
Mm.
because we don't have extra time to take on things that are not meaningful for us or meaningful, hopefully, to the people that are our community. And so it just is so interesting that this has just grown really on its own. I call it my accidental business. I had no idea that, making a post about who are women to follow, which turned into a Google sheet that I dropped around, would ever become anything beyond my Google sheet. And so that's been just cuckoo crazy.
I love again, but sometimes it's for me at the moment. I'm this place with a lot of things. It's just intention without attachment. And if you're looking at that, like again, you had this intention of just I just want to just connect. I want to highlight some women, but without actually doing anything, as you said, beyond collating a document.
Mhm.
Again, there was no attachment to that, to what you would do. But with that, it was just like, oh look, I'm just helping some women to connect, and then next minute, then off you go. There's a couple of things that sort of come from that last bit I'd love to explore with you. First of all, how have you found that being a mum has helped you to be successful in sales and business and the juggle of them all?
It's so challenging. If you'd asked me that question, like back when I was running my own business, for 10 years and through, I mean, my first one was 5 months old and through two more babies, I would have told you is not helping me. I would have said it is, I'm a half-ass mom, I'm a half-ass business person. Like that's how I always felt. But that's also part of my own personality quirks that I work on with my therapist. So, I mean, but one, my kids, they speak their mind. And so there are lots of sales skills that go with that. I think being resilient and being scrappy. I mean, there are days that when kids have 17 blowout diapers and an ear infection, but you still got to get this deal across the line that, you just make it happen. And I think that goes to part of the scrappiness that we talked about. And oh, I love seeing it, in my kids. I love like my youngest daughter is going to go to college this year and she's in some kind of leadership program, which I didn't know about because that's just kind of how mature she is. But the leader came up to me of the program. She's like, "Yes, my husband sent me this email because Danielle has a signature line in her emails." And I'm like, "That's my kid. Yeah, you got a signature line. You are Danielle Greenwood, senior at X high school, and your phone number on there." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm kind of proud of that. You go."
So those things that they pick up though from being around mum, being in business and all that type of stuff as well, isn't it? And I think that's really cool. And I guess going back to, as you said, having your own business there, um, for kids to be able to grow up and go just going to college, getting a job, working for someone else forever, that's not the only path anymore. And so, I guess the things that they would have learned from you in the process, and I love that you're seeing that demonstrated now, even in those little things. But it's so cool when other people pick up this stuff. And again, like your daughter probably just did it just because she thought that's what you do. But then realizing it's like, no, that's not what everybody does. And that's so cool to be able to stand out in that way.
Well, it might also to be because, when she wanted to work for me one summer because she had, swimming and tutoring and everything, I made her sign an employment contract,
Good. That's so cool.
DocuSign, of what her expectations were, how she had to log the chores that she did, when she had to submit the chore sheet to me so that she could be paid. I'm just like, "Yeah, that's just the way because she's very good at weaseling out of things." I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna have her sign a contract."
Oh my gosh, I love that. So for all the parents out there, take note of Leslie's
Fine.
example here because but also too, I think there's two things there. As you said, they like to just weasel out of it or they say, "Oh, I didn't say that," or "I did." The big one is it's like, "I didn't know that." How
I
many times you ask them to do
forgot.
that?
Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah. Or they'll lie about it. There's that one as well, isn't it? So but you've got all those. But I think, yeah, I guess having a clear agreement of, again, what are the expectations from both sides? Here we go. We come together, we sign it, we do this. And if there's any gray areas or any disputes or any conflict, then let's go back to what we both agreed on. And I think it's such a good example and a good reminder too, because there's one thing that I found particularly that I've seen a lot and over the years, particularly like prior to sort of focusing on the sales aspect of resilience, but I worked a lot on, change and people's, I guess, reactions and resistance to change in the workplace, is that I think sometimes employees forget that there is a contract, there is an exchange of value involved. It isn't just I turn up, I do a few things, and you pay me. That sometimes people forget that. So I think going back to having teams that are signing contracts for simple things, then it teaches a lot of responsibility as well.
It also goes back in that employee-employer relationship, both have the opportunity to over-deliver, to give a service or beyond expectation, and guess what? That earns you favor, that gets you closer to that next step in your career. When you're talking about people going down a career path, you go to college, you get this career, you do this, and that's one thing that actually came up at our Wednesday women dinner, and that I made a point of saying is like, if you to look I mean, one, I never got on the corporate path. And because people were worried, like, what happens when I have a child and I get off the path? How will that affect? I'm like, I'm a great example. I never was kind of on the path and I was half on the path and I wanted to be a BP one day and then I wanted to be a chief customer officer one day. And then, but I've just like followed the path that kind of shown itself to me. It's like I work hard, I keep my head down. And when an opportunity arises, I'll be ready. And so it's like, just because you get off the path doesn't mean you won't end up somewhere amazing. And so I want to go back to that because I feel very, especially for women, I feel very, I don't know, I feel very strongly about that. And I feel like it's unfortunate that they have to think about the fact that if they get off a path, they may not get on or they may not get on in the right place. It's like, you know what, forge your own path or find a different path or a different path will show itself to you.
Oh, I love it. I think sometimes these little detours are the best. And again, it's just trusting where things go, and as you said about the path opening up. And I think that comes back to this having this mindset of abundance and possibility and opportunity, rather than that fear and that scarcity around. Oh my gosh, is the path ended? Am I ever going to be able to get another path? So I think that just those little, and it's just sometimes it's just the wording, isn't it? Around again being open to opportunity, and I think there's a lot of trust and faith that comes into these things too. Is that if again, if you're over delivering, you're adding value to other people, and as a byproduct of that, you're building that social capital. Then knowing and trusting that good things are going to open up when the time's right, when the people are right, when the opportunity's right, and just having that little bit of faith in that just sounds like a really good way to do it. So I love that you've brought all those things together for us today and just given us a whole new perspective on different aspects of sales and relationship building. And obviously sales is so much about relationships, but you've given us, a slightly different perspective on it. So I'm super grateful for you sharing that with us today.
Oh, I've enjoyed this. I really have enjoyed it. Even though I took you on 16 detours, which I tend to do, but I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Oh, me too, me too. I know sometimes like I didn't have a path set out for us today. Again, I just trusted that wherever it would go and it would be amazing because, you're amazing, you're doing amazing things. And again, I don't want to then have a script and try and funnel you down this particular chute. So I'm glad that it's gone where it has. And there's one more little bit before we wrap up on the Resilience Rocks theme. Resilience Rocks having a musical twist. Music's such a huge part of resilience from my experience in my own life. And the more that I talk, it's probably one of the most fun parts of this is I get to ask you about music in your world. So I'd love to know if you needed to shift your energy or shift your state in a very quick time, what would be the song that you would put on and play in order to do that for you?
You know what? I won't know the name of the song, but I am a huge, like when I need to focus or I want to feel like still within myself. I'm not a person that needs to be hyped up most of the time. I'm usually one, well, I mean, ADD. I need to be hyped down and focused. And it's usually some type of really like bass heavy classical music. So like a really deep orchestral, movement of somebody that is just like kind of got this deep kind of soul to it. That's the kind of stuff that I would probably go to like center myself and get myself focused and just really kind of feel it because the bass is so deep and it's like a really moving experience.
That sounds incredible, and that's a totally different angle than most people have taken on this. And I get it. It's shifting the energy in any way, whether it's up, down, sideways, grounded. So that's cool. But what I'd love is if you can find me one of your one of your favorite tracks and send it over to me because I've got the Resilience Rocks playlist on Spotify. So I would love to add one of your tracks on there in honor of you and sharing all your wonderful wisdom with us today. And for those who have gone, oh my gosh, this has been amazing. I really need more of Leslie. Where would be the best place for people to do that?
LinkedIn. My screen stats on my phone say I'm on LinkedIn way too much. So yes, it's a normal linkedin.com and it's Leslie-Greenwood. So feel free to reach out to me there. Always happy to chat about community, evangelism, Wednesday women, you name it.
Awesome. Well, I will make sure that we pop a link to that below wherever you are watching or listening to the show today. Again, thank you so much, Leslie. It's just been a wonderful, wonderful conversation, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you more. And for our listeners today, our viewers today, until we meet on the next episode of Resilience Rock Sales, be your best. Thanks for joining us again this week on Resilience Rock Sales. Don't just listen though, take action. The best sales professionals are always learning. Head over to resiliencerocks.com now to go backstage and get the resources mentioned today to help rock your sales goals.